Shalom Mishpachim, welcome to His Narrow Bridge. Our time together today is meant to immerse ourselves in the Word of Yahweh. It is meant to be a personal time of connection to the Word for each of us. I will read each word as translated in English in an interlinear Hebrew Bible. These shows are pre-recorded, so I will be in chat when they air. Feel free to use the chat to post anything that comes to your mind as we read the word. We will begin with prayer, followed by time for each of us to say our own personal prayers. Our beloved friend Alan Horvath taught us, make Elohim number one on a list of one. We pray in the name of Elohim, which includes Yahweh, Yeshua, and the Ruach HaKodesh. Thank you, Elohim, for our lives and all you provide. We ask for a hedge of protection around our mishpacha as we pray and study. We love you dearly. We are your children. We come to you with questions as we seek our personal relationships with you. Please help us learn. If any darkness enters our time together, we ask you now to rebuke it. We will now listen to your word as we immerse ourselves in it and let it speak to us.
Luke chapter 22. And the feast of unleavened bread, which is called Pascha or Pesach, was near. See Easter or Pesach in appendix. And the chief priests and scribes were seeking how they might kill him, for they were afraid of the people. And Satan had entered Yehuda, who was called Scariota, who was from the number of the 12. And he went and spoke with the chief priests and scribes and the chief guards of the temple about how he might deliver him. And they rejoiced and pledged to give their money to him. And he promised them and was seeking an opportunity to deliver him to them away from the crowds. And the day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread arrived, during which there was the custom that the Pascha be slaughtered. And Yeshua sent Kepha and Yochanan and said to them, Go, prepare the Pascha for us that we may eat. And they said to him, Where do you want us to prepare it? He said to them, Behold, when you enter into the city, you will meet up with a man who is bearing a skin of water. Go after him, and where he enters, say to the master of the house, Our master says, Where is the lodging house where I may eat the Pascha with my disciples? And behold, he will show you a certain large upper room that is furnished, prepared there. And they went and found it as he said to them, and they prepared the Pascha. And when the time arrived, Yeshua came and reclined, and the 12 shlichim with him. Footnote 120 is a technicality. Verse 15, and he said to them, I have greatly desired that I eat this Pascha with you before I suffer. I say to you, for that from now on I will not eat it until it is fulfilled in the kingdom of Elohim. Verse 17 is non-existent in the Peshitta, and verse 18 is non-existent in the Peshitta. Footnote 121. These verses are non-existent in some early Greek New Testament manuscripts as well, P75, Aleph, ABW, and the Vulgate. The Peshitta could not have been influenced by later texts such as the Byzantine, which came later than the Greek texts, which also did not include these verses. The added verses are, and having taken a cup, when he had given thanks, he said, Take this and share it among yourselves, For I say to you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine from now on until the kingdom of Elohim comes. Regardless of this reading's late pedigree, the Aramaic is intact, but the English is referenced here for the reader. Verse 19, and he took bread and gave thanks and broke it and gave it to them and said, this is my body, which for your sake is given. Do this for my memorial. And likewise also concerning the cup, after they had eaten supper, he said, this is the cup of the renewed covenant in my blood, which is shed for your sake. But behold, the hand of my betrayer is upon the table. Footnote 22, see Matthew 26:28. Verse 22, and the Son of Man goes as it was determined, but woe to that man by whose hand he is betrayed. And they began to inquire among themselves about who of them is about to commit this. And there was also strife among them about who of them is greater. And Yeshua said to them, the kings of the Gentiles are their masters, and those who are authorities over them are called doers of good. But you are not thus. Rather, whomever is great among you must be as the least, and whomever is the head is as a servant. For he who is great or who reclines, he who does not serve, it is he who reclines. But I am among you as someone who serves, and you are those who have continued with me during my trials. And I promise to you, as my Father has promised me, a kingdom, that you may eat and drink at the table of my kingdom, and sit upon thrones and judge the 12 tribes of Israel. And Yeshua said to Shimon, Shimon, behold, Satan wants to sift all of you like wheat. Footnote 123, Greek reads that Satan wants to sift Simon, who is called Peter, but Aramaic reads that Satan wants to sift all of you. Shimon is being addressed because Yeshua charged him with taking care of the others. Your faith, however, is singular, referring to Shimon alone. Verse 32, and I have prayed over you that your faith may not weaken. Also, in time, you will turn and strengthen your brothers. And Shimon said to him, my master, with you I am prepared even for prison or for death. And Yeshua said to him, I say to you, Shimon, that the cock will not crow this day 3 times until you deny me that you do not know me. And he said to them, when I sent you without purses and without bags and shoes, did you lack for anything? They said to him, nothing. He said to him, from now on, he who has a purse, let him take it, and likewise also a bag. And he who has no sword, let him sell his garments and buy for himself a sword. For I say to you, for also that it was written is worthy to be fulfilled in me, and that I will be numbered with the wicked. 124 is Isaiah 53, verse 12. Therefore I will divide a portion, him with the great and with the strong. He shall divide the spoil upon that he poured out unto death his soul, and with the transgressors he was numbered, and he the sin of many bore, and for the transgressors made intercession. Verse 38, and they said to him, our master, behold, here are 2 swords. He said to them, they are sufficient. And he departed and went, as he was accustomed, to the mountain of the house of olives, and his disciples also went after him. And when he reached the place, he said to them, pray that you may not enter into temptation. And he departed from them about a throw of a stone And he knelt and was praying, and he said, Father, if you desire, you let this cup pass over me, but not my will, rather let yours be done. Then a messenger appeared to him from Shamayim to strengthen him. Verse 44. And while being in fear, he was praying earnestly, and his sweat became like drops of blood, and he fell upon the ground. And he arose from his prayer and came to his disciples, and found them while sleeping from sorrow. And he said to them, Why are you sleeping? You arise and pray, or else you enter into temptation. And as he spoke, behold, a crowd with the one who is called Yehuda, one of the 12, came before them. And he drew near to Yeshua and kissed him. For this sign he had given them, that whomever I kiss is he. And Yeshua said to him, Yehuda, you betray the Son of Man with a kiss. And when those who were with him saw the thing that happened, they said to him, Our master, should we strike them with the sword? And one of them struck a servant to the high priest and severed his right ear. But Yeshua answered and said, That is enough. And he touched the ear of him who was wounded and healed it. And Yeshua said to those who had come against him, the chief priests and scribes, and the chief guards of the temple, You have come out as against a robber against me with swords and with rods to seize me. I was among you every day in the temple, and you did not lay hands upon me. But this is your hour and the power of darkness. Then they seized him and brought him to the house of the high priest. And Shimon followed him from a distance. And they kindled a fire in the midst of the courtyard, and they were sitting around it, and Shimon was also among them. And a certain young woman saw him while he sat by the fire, and she stared at him and said, This man was also with him. But he denied it and said, Woman, I do not know him. And after a little while, another saw him and said to him, You also were with him. But Kepha said, I am not. And after 1 hour, another was affirming and said, Truly this man was also with him, for he is even a Galilean. Kepha said, Man, I do not know what you are saying. And immediately while he spoke, the cock crowed. And Yeshua turned and stared at Kepha, and Shimon remembered the word of our master that he had spoken to him, that before the cock will crow, you will deny me 3 times. And Shimon went outside and wept bitterly. And the men who were holding Yeshua were mocking him, and were covering him and striking him on his face, and saying, Prophesy who struck you. And many other things they were speaking blasphemously and saying against him. And when the day dawned, the elders and the chief priests and scribes gathered, and they took him up to their council chamber. And they said to him, If you are the Mashiach, tell us. He said to them, If I tell you, you will not believe me. And if I ask you, you will not give me an answer, nor will you release me. From now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the power of Elohim. Psalm 110 of Dawid, a psalm. Said Yahweh to my Elohim, Sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. Verse 70, and all of them said, Are you therefore the Son of Elohim? Yeshua said to them, You say that I am. They said, Why are witnesses needed any more by us? For we have heard it from his mouth.
once we've changed behavior, once we've broken down the denial, changed behavior, if you're an addict, you've got to quit your addiction. Now, if you're an eating addict, you can't quit eating. If you're a sex addict, you don't have to never have sex for the rest of your life. But you've got to behavior modify. You've got to take action and do something about it. Then what I'm going to show you in the last segment of this program is this original pain feeling work. Inner child work is another form of original pain work. You're going to see very intense original pain work. You're going to see what we do in the treatment center. But I also do a form of inner child work, and a lot of people do. We do it in workshops. It's very powerful work, and I'm not saying that it's not powerful, effective, it doesn't change lives. It does. Some people need to do heavier work. A lot of that depends on the kind of abuse you had, like sexual and physical abuse and severe emotional battering are the worst. The chronicity of the abuse, how long did it go on? There's no mild abuse, but let's say the sexual abuse went on for 7 years, or somebody had an incident of sexual abuse. That's going to be different in terms of the intensity of the pain. And then here's an interesting one. Was there anyone in your childhood that you mattered to? Was there anyone? Children need to believe they matter. Children also need to believe their parents are okay. They're like two foundations of childhood. To believe your parents are really okay. See, if my parents are not okay, what's going to happen to me? So I couldn't have called a meeting and said, Dad, you're an alcoholic. Mom, you're a co-alcoholic. I'm moving down to the Smith's house at 3 years old. Now, later on in the programs we're going to do, I'm going to talk about corrective experiences when we talk about championing your inner child, or the cognitive work. See, a lot of people go from there to there and don't ever do this, or they jump into spiritual work. We're going to spend 2 times, I will spend with you in future programs doing the spiritual work, talking about the spiritual work. But what we're going to focus on now is the original pain work. And I want to show you some segments that we taped in Houston. Jeannie Poole at Center for Recovering Families got together 30 people. These are courageous people. They come from every walk of life. They are black, brown, white, male, female, rich, poor. And I've selected them, you know, and Jeannie helped me select people who could illustrate that these people have acted out all the different ways that the inner child acts out. You're going to see a man whose father deserted him. You're going to see a gal who was emotionally abused. Her mother never accepted her for who she was. You're going to see a gal that was incested, who's been acting that out in romance and sex addiction. And there's a wide variety in programs, in future programs. You're going to see people, bankers and engineers and people who were offenders holding teddy bears. You're going to see these people holding stuffed animals, because what we found is that by holding the stuffed animal, you've got one right there, by holding the stuffed animal, you can begin to access that inner child. You can begin to access the feelings. See, the inner child is your feelings, your needs, your wants. So many of us who are adult children don't know what we feel. We don't know what we need. We don't know what we want, because in those crazy families where violence was going on, or alcoholism was going on, or there was hypertension going on, you didn't have time to pay attention to your own internal cues. You were watching the veins in Mama's neck, or you were wondering whether Daddy was going to be drunk, or was he going to be violent, or was he going to go into rage tonight? What was going to happen? Who was going to be controlling you? Could you have your feelings? And so you lost contact with your own internal cues. And that's another definition of codependency. The person who doesn't know what they feel, they don't know what they need, they don't know what they want. So we're going to focus on that original pain work. Now, I asked Kip Flock, who is the clinical director of my treatment center at Ingleside Hospital, I asked him to fly down to Houston and to do an hour of original pain work with people. And I am amazed that what you're going to see are people who knew they were on camera, they knew they were being filmed, but it's the most powerful stuff I've ever seen. That it happens even if you got cameras sticking in your face. And it's very, very powerful work. See, Cindy's fighting for her psychological life. I call this also original justice work, because the child in us is terrified and is most afraid to express anger. Think of how many of you could express anger as a child to a parent. What is anger? It's your protective energy. So what Kip does is he protects her, and he gives her permission to express the anger, which dislodges the energy that's keeping her 5 years old. That 5-year-old is frozen in there because she's never been able to finish and literally fight for her psychological life. She's being soul murdered by this critical, shaming, rejecting mama. So that's a part of the grief process. It's original pain, is expressing the anger. Another part of it is the sadness. The sadness. Now, men in our culture tend to have more trouble with this. See, since Jim had no father, he doesn't know how to parent, and he's afraid of parenting. What Kip does here is he takes the opportunity to teach him what nurturing parent is. He lets him have his pain and his hurt. Now, with his recovery program and his inner child work, he can learn to nurture the child inside of him. Now, Rhonda's work also illustrates the multi-generational character of toxic shame. Her mother was sexually and physically abused. Rhonda was sexually and physically abused. The abused child in her mother, it can't be there to take care of Rhonda. So what she does is try to set Rhonda up to take care of her. In this piece of work, Rhonda's going to work on breaking the enmeshment with her mother and carrying her mother's pain. She's going to reclaim her wounded inner child, and she's going to finish it by saying that I no longer need to matter to a man to be okay. Rhonda's work is illustrative of the fact that we're not trying to blame parents. We're trying to finish. We have to demythologize them and see them for the wounded people they were. Jim, Rhonda, Cindy have all been soul murdered. They want to cry out. They wanted as children to cry out, but they were too terrified to do so, so the energy gets frozen. Then they act it out in their reenactments. So by helping them feel the feelings and discharge the original pain, they don't have to act it out anymore. And that's the healing work that the original pain is.
For more information about these videos, look at the video description and click more. You can then have links to my YouTube channel and the YouTube playlist, which has all the Aramaic English New Testament videos, Bible Hub links, and Odiote. So this is useful because you can click a chapter and go word by word through the scriptures and get details about each word and where they are used throughout the Bible.